Today's topic is, what are the 5 most essential books that every writer should own? Well, if you've got 5 minutes, I've got 5 tips for you. You know, as far as I'm concerned, every writer should have a series of books on the shelf above the desk where you're writing so that you can lift them off and refer to them from time to time, and even pick them up and read them for inspiration from time to time. Number 1 on my list of essential books for writers is William Zinsser's classic On Writing Well. I think this might have been the first writing reference book that I ever bought back 30 years ago when I started my writing career. It was published in 1976 and has been republished numerous occasions since then, and has had its 25th anniversary publication a number of years ago. So this is the reason why it keeps being republished, is because it is a classic. It never goes out of style and it never goes out of date. One of the most important takeaways I'd like to share with you from this book, let me read it to you. William Zinsser wrote, "Examine every word you put on paper. You'll find a surprising number that don't serve any purpose." Number 2 on my list is The Elements of Style, Strunk and White. This book was published in 1919 by William Strunk, and I think it's important for you to also understand is that he self-published this book. He was a professor at the time, and it was a book that needed to be written for his students. And it's been rewritten and updated over the years, and it is still the essential book on writing style. And when I say style, I mean things like punctuation, grammar, syntax, the very best word choices that you can use. This is a book that you should have on your shelf. It's a very slim little book, but it's one that you will refer to time and time again. And I'd like to share with you one important takeaway from that book as well. When a sentence is made stronger, it usually becomes shorter. Thus, brevity is a byproduct of vigor, not unlike William Zinsser's takeaway. Number 3 on my list is Natalie Goldberg's now classic book, Writing Down the Bones, Freeing the Writer Within. This is a very different book from the first 2, and it was published in 1986, and as far as I'm concerned, it has become a classic. Natalie Goldberg is one of my very favorite writing teachers, but she has a very different approach to things than many writing teachers. And she focuses largely on writing practice, which I think is a really important aspect of writing. And here's the main takeaway from that book that I'd like to share with you. It's odd that we never question the feasibility of a football team practicing long hours for one game. Yet, in writing, we rarely give ourselves space for practice. And that's so important. We need to practice our craft. The 4th book on my list is Anne Lamott's classic Bird by Bird. This is a book which she subtitles Some Instructions on Writing and Life. And the reason for that is it's a bit of an instruction book, but it's also a bit of a memoir. It's probably one of the best books that you can have on your shelf that you can read that will inspire you and help you understand something about the writer's life. I'd like to share with you one takeaway from that book that I think is really important. Almost all good writing begins with terrible first efforts. You need to start somewhere. And again, this is another theme throughout all of these books. You'll also find in Natalie Goldberg's book that I mentioned earlier, she talks about giving yourself permission to write whatever kind of rubbish you want. Not everything that you write is going to be published. Not everything that you write should be published. And it's important for you to understand that first drafts often are rubbish. Now, the final book on this particular short list of the best books is Eats, Shoots, and Leaves. This is a book about punctuation by Lynn Truss. It's a fairly recent book. Of these 5 books that I'm sharing with you, it's the most recent of them. Because as far as I'm concerned, punctuation is so important to actually communicating a specific message. By changing the placement of something as simple as a comma, you can completely change the meaning of the sentence. So if you want to convey a specific message in your writing, then you've got to learn how to use proper punctuation. Now, that doesn't mean that from time to time you don't break the rules, but you have to know the rules before you can break them. I'd like to share with you one important takeaway from that book. proper punctuation is both a sign and the cause of clear thinking. And it's interesting that we should think about clear thinking, because if you can think clearly about your writing is going to flow more easily. So if punctuation helps, I'm all for it. Okay, well, that's my 5 tips for you for this week. I think we should all just think about all of those, gather them all together, keep them near you when you write, but don't just have them and own them, use them, read them over and over again. Now I think I'm going to get back to my latest manuscript. Maybe you could too. Subscribe to Write, Fix, Repeat, and maybe I can help you improve your writing knowledge and skills. 5 tips at a time.